This is an article demo, and the first thing I'd like for students to do is go to Canvas and open your article demo 23 document. It should be a zip folder, so what you may have to do is download it, and you'll find your zip folder either in your downloads or to the desktop, wherever you've saved it to. And then I'd like for you to double click or right click or control click to open the zip file. When you open the zip file, it should create a folder. The folder, when we open it, should look something like this. What it will have or contain is all of the parts of the article demo that we'll be doing. And the article demo should look something like this. If I double click on my PDF and we preview it, you'll see that we have a title page with a title, an image, drop cap, auto page numbering, quotes, some text wrapped images, and a table at the end. And that's basically what we'll be doing today. Also, I have an example version. For example, if you click on your article example 23 INDESIGN document, you'll see that we have our document here, and this is exactly what we'll be doing today. Now, for students who might get behind or might have a hard time opening the documents, we also have a template. And the template is, if we look at it, you'll see that our template is basically what we will be doing. And it even has our pages, and it has our masters set up, how they would be set up, etc. So this is a way for students to access a template if they're having a hard time setting up their document as they follow along. I'd like for students to follow along and go step by step. And this is a long demonstration, so you can break it up into parts and follow along as closely as you can. All right, let's X out of these documents, and we're not going to save. And what we're going to do first is we're going to set up a new document. We're going to go to New File, and we're going to go to Print because we are making an article. And what I'd like for us to do is go to our picas and change it to inches because I want to work in inches. We're going to change our document size to 8 by 10.5 in height. And this will give us an article size closer to a magazine size. We're going to set up our pages as 4 pages. We're going to set up our columns as 4 columns. I want us to keep our gutter at 0.1667. And on our margins, I want to change our margins. So I want us to unlock this so that we can affect only one side. I want our bottom to be 0.75 so we can have room for our auto page numbering. And if we scroll down even further, I'd like for us to set up our bleed. Our bleed, I'd like for us to set it at 0.5. This will allow us to have images to go outside the exterior of the article. And after we're done with this, I'd like for us to hit Create. And this is what our document should look like. We have page 1. And if we go down to this bottom menu down at the bottom and we go to page 2, you'll see that we have all of our pages, page 3, page 4, and we have our parent page. So our parent document, just like we talked about in our INDESIGN review, affects all of the pages in our project or our document. So what we're going to do first is we're going to start by auto page numbering our parent so that will affect the rest of our document. So the first thing I'd like for us to do is to grab our type tool, and I'm going to drag out a box into my bottom margin where we set up that extra 0.75 space, and we are going to make a auto page number. Now there's several ways we can do this. We can right click or control click, and we can insert a special character, and we can make it in its markers and make it current page number. Now, if you are a person who doesn't like right clicking, we can go over here and we can go to type and go to insert special character, go to markers and hit current page number. Then we're going to type in the name of our magazine. It's Fader, F-A-D-E-R. So what I'd like for us to do is to add some space in between our page number and our article title. Now, one way to do this is we can go to either type and we can go to insert white space and we can add M space. M space is equal to the letter of a capital M, or we could right click or control click and hit insert white space and do M space there. M space again is the space equal to the capital letter M, and N space is equal to the space of a capital letter N. So let's add our M space. And what I'd like for us to do here is, now that we have our title, I want us to change our font, and we are going to change it up at the top. So this is our paragraph, this is our character. We're going to go to character, and we are going to change it to Futura. And remember, we use Futura PT. Let's scroll down and maybe we make it medium. That sounds good. All right. And one last thing I'd like for us to do is to make the point size a lot larger. Let's make it 17 points. And that's looking pretty good. So what I'd like for us to do next is we are going to change the color of fader. I want it to be a pink color. So what we're going to do is, if we can highlight the text, I'd like for us to go to our coloring up here at the top. And I'd like for us to go to this magenta color. We're going to change it to this pink color, except this time, what we're going to do is we're going to add that pink and make a new color. If we double click on it, we can turn down the magenta and make it a little more of a medium pink. And you can also make a spot color, or you could find a Pantone. But this is what I want to do for today, is just make a process color tint. And we're going to hit OK. So this is what our auto page numbering should look like so far. And what we're going to do is we're just going to copy and paste it. Command C, Command V, or Control V, Control C, Control V. And we are going to place it over here. Now you're like, oh, it's backwards. Well, that is correct. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my cursor. I'm going to cut and paste Command X, Command V, and then I'm going to add my M space in there again. Remember, we can right click and hit insert white space and do our M space. We can also hit Command Shift M. If you're like command keys, Command Shift M. Or you can use Control Shift M if you're on a PC. Or if you're one of those people who likes none of the above, we can go to type and hit enter white space and do M space. So there we go. That is our auto page numbering. And if you select the box with your type tool, you'll see that we are left aligned. We want to right align this. And that way, when we look at our page numbers here, you can see that they are set up to be right and left aligned. So if we click through our pages here, you'll see that they are auto page number all the way to page 4. And we can scroll through it. Wonderful. We have auto page numbering. So let's go next. And what I'd like for us to do on our parent page, go back to parent A, double click on it. I'd like for us to add our guides. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to layout, and we're going to create guides, and we're going to go to rows. We're going to create 4 rows. And it should create a modular grid. Now, if it's set on page, I want you to set it to margins. Make sure it's on margins. And if you can't preview it, make sure you hit preview so you can see what's going on. It should create more of a even rectangular shape. Now, you could make it even more modular and do 5, but for the case of the design that I'm making, I want it to be 4. Okay, and so that should be done. And what it will do is it will affect the margins on each of the pages throughout our document. All right, so now that we're done with that, the next step I'd like for us to do is to start building our column text. And so I'm going to make a new parent, and the new parent is going to be based on parent A. So if we go to our drop-down menu on our pages and we go to new parent, I'm going to base it on my parent A. And the reason I'm basing it on parent A is because I want to keep all of my auto page numbering. So we go OK. And if I go to parent B, you'll notice that it puts a B just so that when we're on it, we don't get confused with what parent we are on. So on this page, I'd like for us to grab our type tool. And if you forgot, we can hit T on our keyboard to grab our type tool. And I'd like for us to drag out text boxes into our designed grid. And I'm going to do 4 of them, 4 columns, and they're body text, so it should look very much like an article that you would see in a magazine. So and try to snap to guides, and you can use your arrow tool over here to kind of click and make sure that all of them are set up accurately. And I notice mine are. You can also hit off of your guides by hitting Command semicolon or Control semicolon, and you can kind of see where these are. But I want to make sure that I'm on my grid. And to link these on our parent, what we are going to do is we are going to click on this box, this little box at the bottom of our first column. Now make sure that you're on your black arrow tool. We're going to click on this bottom arrow and make sure that we're linking up at the top. This means that we're going to start at our new column text. So that's them linked together. Now, we can't really see that they're linked together. And the way that we can see that they're linked together is by going to View and going to Extras and going to Show Text Threads. Notice I can see that they're linked. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing as click on the box with our arrow key and keep linking these so that they become linked text. Now, before we move any further, I want us to add parent B to page 2 and 3. So if we drag B down to the corner, it should create a halo over top of 2 and 3. And now if I go to 2 and 3, you will see that if I click off my guides, I have my new parent B on page 2 and 3. So this is looking more like an article to me. Let's keep going and keep adding parts to this article. Let's go to page 1 and let's add our text box to page 1. Put our guides back on with our Command semicolon. And I'm going to grab my type tool. And I'm going to grab my text box and I'm going to drag it out just in this bottom area. I'm going to go to page 4. Make sure you're on page 4 and it will tell you here. And we also have our auto page numbering. And I'll click and drag out on the top 2 rows. And that should be page 4. So the interesting thing is that if we go to page 2 and 3, notice we can't see the text threading. That is because these are locked because they are a part of a parent. To unlock a parent, we have to use Command and Shift or Control and Shift if you're on a PC to unlock them, to allow these to link to our other documents. And the reason we have a parent that would be locked that we would throw in there is so that we could kind of work and then amend that parent. And we are going to amend it by linking it to other documents. So what we're going to do first is we're going to hit Command and Shift or Control and Shift if you're on a PC and make sure we can see these unlocked documents. And they are looking pretty good to me. And then we're going to go to page 1. What we're going to do is we're going to grab our black arrow key if we don't already have it. And I want to link that box, that text box, right down here on the bottom right side. And we are going to link it to our page 2. And make sure you hit at the top left corner because we're reading from left to right. And notice that we see our text thread. And we're going to do the same thing for page 3. We're going to link this text box right here to page 4. Awesome. And the last thing that we're going to do before we get moving further and adding the actual text to our pages, we have our document set up pretty well. I want to click on this and I want to make some columns on this particular text box. Now notice it's one column up here on the top right corner. I want to make 3 columns. Looking pretty great so far. So if I go to my document and I kind of scroll through, you'll see on page 1 that we have our text box there and it's threaded to text box 2. And all of these are threaded now. So if I zoom out, you'll see that we have threaded text. Now what I'm going to do next to make this article more complete is I'm going to go to page 1. And when we're on page 1, I want to add text. Now I have a text document in our folder from our article demo 23, and I'm going to hit my Command D. To add images or to add text, you always hit Command D. Now, if people are like, or Control D if you're on a PC. If you're somebody who doesn't like command functions, you can always go to File and hit Place. So make sure you're selected on your text box before we hit our Command D. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit File, and I'm going to hit Place, and I'm going to make sure I add my article text. Now notice that the text is an RTF document. It has to be a true text file or a rich text file for it to add text that doesn't have any assets affected to it. For example, if you typed in a Word document and it had its margins and it had its specific Word file forms on it, it would affect the text. We want text that is basic and that won't affect things. So if you highlighted text from the internet or you highlighted text from Word, it would add all their formatting. We don't want to have any formatting. So make sure that it's a rich text file or a regular text file. All right, so let's go to Open. And we are going to notice we have the parentheses there, and we are going to click it and make sure that it scrolls throughout our article. Now, if I hit Shift W on my keyboard, you'll notice that I can see a preview. This is my article. Looks pretty basic, almost looks like a typewriter, but we're going to make it look fancy. We're going to go in and we're going to kind of work on this continually. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this text to look nice, to look like a regular article. So one way we can do that is stick our cursor into our threaded text, and we will hit Command A or Control A, and that will select all of our text. Notice that if I go to page 2, that all my text is selected. And what we're going to do is we are going to change our font. If we go up to the top and we change our font to Adobe Garamond, we want to do it as Adobe Garamond Pro Regular. Now, I forgot to remind folks that if you aren't on your typography setting up at the top, just make sure that you're not in Essentials and that you are in your typography setting. It will allow us to toggle between our paragraph and our character. And typography is the preferred way to work on InDesign documents, especially when we're laying out text in something like an article or a pamphlet or even a multi-page document. All right, so let's keep going. So now that we have this regular Adobe Garamond in here, maybe I don't want it to be left aligned with this ragged edge. Maybe I want it to be justified. So we are going to hit Justified Text. And if we wanted to change the color, we could change the color, etc. But this is what I want. And what we're going to do here before I move any further is I'm going to set up a paragraph style, meaning that I want all of my text to look like this if it goes in the body of the article. So what we're going to do next is we are going to add at the bottom of our paragraph styles a new paragraph style, and it is going to be called body text. And if we kind of double click back on this and we look at all of the basic character format, you'll notice that it's 10.5, it's Adobe Garamond Pro, that if we look at all of the parts of it, like if we go to justification, character formats or indents and spacing, that it's left justified. If we wanted to change the color, we could do that down here. But we want it to be black. We want it to read like regular text, so we're going to hit OK. This is what our article is starting to look like. And it's looking a little bit more normal. I would say looking more like a regular article. And if we go back to our page 1, the next step I'd like to do is I'd like to add images and add our drop cap. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set our cursor at the beginning and we're going to add our drop cap. Notice that we are on our character setting here. I want us to be on paragraph. And what we're going to do is we are going to go to our drop cap, which is this top one right here, this top little menu right here. We're going to hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we are going to go down 5 lines. I think that looks nice. And I'm going to highlight it, and I'm actually going to go back to my character. And instead of it being black, I want it to be that pink that we made. That's looking much better. Now, if you're concerned about the interletter spacing here, where it's like a little tight, we can also go to our leading or your kerning here, and we can like make it a little wider. Is everybody seeing that? It gives it a little bit more breathing room, and I could, we could keep going with that. But I think this looks fine. The next step we're going to do is we are going to add an image to this document. Now notice that we have a lot of open space up here. We can put our title, we can put our image. So I'm going to grab a rectangle frame, a rectangle, and I'm going to click it into open space, and I'm going to make it a box. And the box size is going to be 5 by 5 inches. Okay. Except this time we are going to rotate it. If we use our rotation tool at the top, we are going to make it 45 degrees. And that way we have this box that kind of fits in this space. Now, once we have our box there, we're going to put an image in it. And what we can do is we can hit our Command D, or if you want to hit File Place, you can do it that way. And we are going to hit our head PSD. That's in our article demo folder. And notice it adds that photo cocked. Now it has a donut in the middle, and the donut will allow us to, turn things. If I click on it, I can also just go back to my degrees rotation, and I can make it 0. Now notice it's off kiltered. If I go to this top right corner and I hit fill frame proportionally, it will just fill it. Now it looks good, but it doesn't look perfect because it's auto formatting it for us. So what I like to do is I like to shift things down, make it look like that head's kind of in the middle. That looks a little better to me. Now, I'm not really into the linear or edge of this box. So the next step I'd like to do is add a line to the box, much like the original document that we generated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit on this box, and I'm going to add a line to the edge. It's going to be a black line. And I'm going to make the point size 7 points, and I'm going to make it a double thin line. Now notice if I zoom in here, you'll see that the image kind of bleeds over the double line. That's because it's a singular line that's acting as a double line. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to stroke off to the right here. And we are going to go to these different settings where it says align stroke. And we're not going to align it on the inside. If we align it on the inside, it would look like this. If we align it to the outside, it will look like that. And that's how I want it to appear. Now, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to make this frame look a little bit more original by changing the corner settings. Now, your corner settings should be at the top, right here. And we're going to make it an inverse round. And you can change that a little bit. You could make it a little deeper. It's up to you how you do that. And I'm just going to click off, and this is kind of what our cover looks like so far. Now, I noticed that my box is really close to my text. Now you can add some text wrap to it if you'd like. And I'm just going to add a little bit, just enough so that it straddles my box a little bit. And the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add my title. And to add my title, I hit my Command D. And I'm going to actually do a PDF. I think it's going to look better. And we can click and drag out. Now, you can hold your Command and Shift key, and holding your Command and Shift key will allow you to constrain your proportions. Now, notice if I just hit my Shift key, you're going to notice that it kind of only constrains the box. Now, everything in INDESIGN is a box inside of a box. That's really important to understand. So we don't want to do that, but we do want to have our broadcast text there. Now it is going to go outside the margin just a little bit, not too much, but enough that, it looks like it's part of this design. And that's looking pretty good to me. So if I hit my Shift W now, you'll see that that's what my cover looks like, or my first page to this article. All right. So let's go to page 2, and we can go to our pages up here and go to page 2. Double click on it. And if we look at this, notice it's looking pretty simple or pretty basic. I'm thinking that we need some sort of background color to make this look a little nicer. Let's go to our layers here, and we are going to add a new layer, and we're going to add a color box. We are going to go to our box tool here and click in open space. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in my width. Notice my document is 8 by 10.5. So I want to add basically a 0.5 around it. So it would be 17. and our height would be 11.5. I go, okay. So this is what my box looks like, and I want to align it to the bleed mark as best as we can. And what we're going to do is we're going to take off this black line. We're just make it none. Let's go to the fill. And I'm going to add this CMYK color, or the CMYK blue. And I'm going to add a new one. And I'm going to double click on it. And this time I'm going to change it to a Pantone. We're going to use an uncoded CMYK. And we're going to click a color that is as close to this as possible. I'm going to choose Pantone P116-1. And again, it's uncoded. And that's going to be as close as I can get to the color that I want. And if we go to our layers, we would want to put that layer behind the text, and we can lock it just like we would with any other article that we made. Now, as I'm looking at this article, I'm noticing that my page numbering is really close to that text at the bottom. If we go to our Pages menu at the top and we go to our parent A, we can take both of these boxes and hold Shift on our page numbering. And if we go to our Type tool, we can add some negative inset spacing. And that way, when we look at our article now, we should have a little bit of spacing. I think that looks a little better. So our article's looking something like this so far. Looking pretty good. And what we're going to do next is we're going to add some images. And I would like for you to learn how to text wrap an image here. And what we're going to do is we are going to go to our Command D or place, file place, and we are going to add this head here. Now this head has alpha channels, which I literally made a line in Photoshop. And in Photoshop, that line behaves where InDesign can see the line that I made. Now, if we go to text wrap off to the right side, I can text wrap it and it will automatically detect the shape. So if I go to detect edges, it will detect the edges of that, and then I can, move it. Now, if I have actually made a vector on it, which I did, you can go to alpha channel, and it's actually can physically see the alpha channel that I made. And that should make it look a little better. And you can increase the size, the point size of this head. Now, I like this floating head the way it is. I do want it to have a drop shadow. If we click on this box, I can go to effects right here, and I can go to drop shadow. And what I'd like for us to do is to add a drop shadow. Now, I like it to have a good amount of spread or size, and I like the opacity to be a little lower so that it doesn't look so awkward. And you can make the distance a little less. I like the distance a little less. And that's looking pretty good to me. 30%. And so if I preview it, it's subtle. It's floating, but not like a really hard shadow. All right. Next step we're going to do is we're going to add some bold text. Now, if we remember adding our paragraph styles will either affect full paragraphs or it will affect column text or full bodies of text. If we want to affect individual characters or lines of text, we want to use our character styles. So for this one, I'm going to select my title, and I'd like for us to create a character style. I'm going to go to my character, and I'm going to change my Adobe Garamond to bold. And then after I change it to bold, I want to increase the point size to about 14 points. And then after you hit this to 14 points, I want it to stay black. That's all I want the character style to be. So we're going to go to character styles, and we're going to add a new character style, and I'm just going to title it titles. And that way, every time I go to, let's say I go to haha sound up here, and I go to character styles and I hit titles, you're going to see that it goes and creates a title. And if I go to page 4 and I go to Tender Buttons 2005 and I go to character styles and I hit titles, it's going to change that as well. All right. The last thing I'd like to do is add some character styles that will give us quotations. So let's say I want to create a new character style, and I add a new character style and I double click on it and change it to quotes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my basic format, go to font family, keep it Adobe Garamond Pro. I'm going to keep it bold, except the size, I'm going to keep it at 18. And I go. And my character color, I'm going to make it that pink. And so that way, when I go to a quote here, I can change my quote to being a little bigger. Maybe I will add one to right here and add my character style and add quotes. And maybe there we go. And notice if I hit my Shift W, this is what my quotes look like. And it's looking a little bit more like a regular article. Now, the last thing I want to do on this page is I want to add a photo of the band, but I want to make an interesting shape to place it into. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to place the band photo right into here. I'm going to hit Command D or Control D if you're on a PC, or you can also go to File. I'm going to add my Broadcast 1 JPEG, and I'm going to click and drag it out to be in here. Now, it doesn't have to be precisely placed. If it has a text wrap on it over here, I want you to take the text wrap off. And what I'd like for us to do is to use our pen tool to draw a picture around it. Now, if you don't know how to navigate this, it's like any other Adobe software. We can hit Command plus or minus to zoom in, zoom out. We can hit our spacebar to navigate around. So it's very much like any other piece of software. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, and I'm just going to start pinning around these characters or these members of the band. And remember, with any pen tool, we can click and drag out, and we can change direction of paths, and just do the best you can. I'm not looking for precision here. We're just trying to make a little fun tracing of the band. And once I get to the bottom here, I'm just going to make it once I get to the bottom here, I'm just going to kind of square it off a little bit. And there is my tracing. I'm going to cut my band out right now. One thing I can do is hit Command X or Control X just to cut the band out. If we're clicked on our object here, we can go to Edit, and we can go Paste Into. And it will paste right into the place of where it was. And this is a really nice tool because it will allow us to accurately add things to our shapes that we add to InDesign. The other thing that's important to remember is that with our pen tool or with our arrow tool, I can go in here and I can use my pen tool or my arrow tool to kind of like mess with things. Noticing there are areas that I want to kind of fix up here. And you can use your pen tool or your arrow tools to kind of mess with stuff. And that way you can kind of get a shape that you like. All right, so this is looking better to me. And once I'm done cutting out the band, what I'd like for us to do is I'd like for us to text wrap it. Now this is kind of tricky because it's in the middle of the text and it's going to look funny. So if I click on this and I go to text wrap, and I text wrap to object or shape, you're going to notice that the text wraps in a funny way. And what we want to do is we want to wrap to the left side so that we don't get all of this weird stuff happening. Now, it's really important for you to make sure that when you add any spacing, we don't want it to affect the text on this side. And we don't want it to get much bigger than that. And I'm going to preview this. And it's looking okay to me. Now, there are things that, we'll talk about later, like we don't want these orphans or these singular lines, and we can use things like tracking and leading to help adjust some of these things aesthetically. All right, So I'm thinking this article is looking pretty good so far. We have page 1, 2, and 3 kind of finished here. And I'd like to go to page 4 here, and let's finish this article. What we're going to do on the very end of this article is we're going to add a table. If we grab our type tool, we can drag out a text box on these last 4 columns, 2 rows here. And what we're going to do is we're going to insert a table. If we go to the top here and we go to Insert Table, it will give us choices of columns and rows. I want 2 rows and 4 columns. Sometimes the default is for it to be 4 rows, but we want it to be 2, and we want to hit OK. Now, it's going to look something like an Excel document, and it actually functions much like an Excel document. The only difference is controlling it, which is a little cantankerous, so take your time with it. If we hold our type tool, and the type tool is the primary control mechanism of the tables, we're going to hold our arrow tool to the top corner, and notice that we select all of it. If we select all of it, I'd like for us to change the general shape and size of this. And if we go up to the top here, you'll see it's 1.75, and I want to change that to 1.75 in height. It's 0.0625 right now, and I'm going to change it to 1.75. And that should make our cells squares. Once we're done with that, I'd like for us to change the color of this. Now, the way we change the color is through these little T-bars. Now, right now, the exterior has a black line. And so I want to change the exterior lines. So this would control the exterior lines to be, right now they're black. I want to change them to be none. So there will be no exterior line color. Now to change the interior line color, which is still black, I want to change those to paper. And if we increase the point size of that, I want to change it to about 10 points. You'll see the white once we add the fill color. Now the fill color, I want it to be our pink, but I want it to have a lighter tint. I want it to be 30%. So if we click into open space here, you'll see how our table is looking. So it's looking pretty good. What I'd like for us to do now is I'd like for us to grab our type tool again, and we're going to click into the first box. Now, we can click into each box and type in them. That's one way people use these tables. We can also add images. I'm going to click in the first box and add an image. What we're going to do is we're going to go to Command D or Control D if you're on a PC, or we can go to File, Place, and I'm going to add our buttons image. This is our album, and it's filling that box perfectly, but maybe you want it to inset on that box. And what we can do here is we can, if we highlight the box with our type tool. Now remember, to affect what's inside the box, it has to be highlighted. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to 0.1875. And what we're going to do is we are going to fill frame proportional. So it will center the album. And what we're going to do is we're going to do that to each album. And so I'm going to hit Command D, and we're just going to keep adding the albums, hit OK. And then I'm going to highlight it with my text tool. And now if you don't have your type tool, remember you can always hit T. And I'm going to hit that. And I'm going to inset my spacing to be 0.1875. And then I'm going to fill proportionally. And I'm going to do each one. Command D. Get my next album, hit open, grab my type tool, highlight it. Now it's kind of tedious to highlight. I think that's tricky. A lot of people are like, clicking all over the place. You just have to click right on the object or the table cell. And then we're going to do our inset spacing to 0.1875, and we're going to fill frame proportional. And we're going to do our last one, Command D, and do our album 3, and hit my type tool T, and just grab that and inset space. And what I'm going to do is autofit. So now when I look at my document, you can see that we have each of our cells evenly spaced and our albums very much in the very center of each cell. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add some text to our cells. Now, I'm going to grab a little bit of text from up here, like maybe a sentence, and copy and paste it into this box right here. If we go to look at it, you're going to see it's really tight to the edge. Maybe it doesn't look just right. And what I'd like for us to do is to select the text, and I'd like for it to become Gil Sans. And we have Gil Sans Nova, and I'm just going to do book. And what we can do is we can inset space like we did on our last one. Except this time, notice that it doesn't give me the options. Now I can expand my window over here, which is a pain in the rump, and I can get more options to affect, my inset spacing, which is really what we want to do. Now, if I know this because I've used this software for a long time. If you don't know that, what we can do is we can go to our table up at the top and go to cell options and go to text. And then we can hit our inset spacing there. And I think that's a nice way to do it. And so what we can do is I'd like for us to go to our paragraph styles here. Let me make this window a little smaller. That was a little confusing. Go to my paragraph styles here. And I'm actually going to add a paragraph style for Gil Sans table. And I'm going to hit OK. So that each time I grab text and I add it to the box, it will give me that Gil Sans text. Now, if I want to affect all the cells for them to all be the same, and we could have done this for the top two. What you do is you go to your table and go to your cell options and you go to text. And we want to set our inset spacing at 0.1875. Oops, 1875. And we go OK. And it will make it all the same. So each time I add text now to it, it will do the same thing. We're getting really close here, at least. What we're going to do here at the very end is make this table kind of line up better. Notice that the table is kind of shoved to the top of the text box. If we click on our text box with our black arrow tool, what I'd like for us to do is go to our object and go to text frame options. You can also hit Command B. Command B is going to be, or Control B if you're on a PC, is going to be very useful to you. And I'm going to unclick my inset spacing right here so that they are not linked. And I'm going to use my top inset spacing to give this text frame a little bit more space at the top. And I'm going to make it 0.5. And I go, OK. So now it's looking a little better. I still feel like it's a little weird and dry or blank in that space. So what we're going to do at the very end is we're going to add a line. You can grab your pen tool. And we are going to draw a line from here to here. And I'm just going to hold my Shift key. And I'm going to change that line to a double thin, make it about 5 points. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it that Pantone blue that we had before. And for me, I'm just going to add that stroke to the bottom side, which is the inside. And that way our stroke should look something like this. And this article is looking pretty finished to me, at least for our purposes. And at the end here, what I'd like for us to do to save our document is to go to File, Save, and we're going to save this as article JT. That way I have my own version of this, and I'm going to save it to my same folder just so I have a version of it. And I don't want you to submit this. I want you to submit your PDF to the end. And we're going to go to File, and we're going to go to Export, and we're going to do a print PDF. And it's still going to be article JT. Whatever your initials are, I'd like for you to add them. And I'm going to save it to my folder. You can save it to your desktop if that's easier for you. And I'm going to save. But when I'm exporting it, make sure that you hit right here that it is a spread, That way our article will look like it does in InDesign. I also want you to make sure you're hitting all of your pages. We go to export, and it will have overset text. Notice we had images and overset of our margins, so it will acknowledge that. I go OK, and I've saved my document. And what we're going to do is we're going to preview our versions here in our article demo file. So if I go to my article JT here, and I preview it in Acrobat, go to Command L, and we should have our final article finished. All right, guys, hang in there. It's a long demo, I know, and this should help us get through some of the parts of understanding InDesign. Good luck.